All right, here we are. Tip 2. We're going on our 10 tips to help win football games. Last week, we talked about the first tip, which was charting efficiency. Today, we're going to talk about the second tip, guys, which is have an accountability system. Now, the way this kind of works is these first two are really more about self-scouting, grading, holding your team accountable, whatever. And then we're going to get into some more specific things. So for those listening that are new to us, all 10 of these will not be about self-scouting, but the first two come across that way. And then we'll get into some other stuff that'll help you in the game. But these are tips to help you win football games. And the first one was charting efficiency. We went through how that works. So let me kind of summarize that, because it's going to factor into this accountability system that I say you need. So you take all the plays, you put yes or no beside them, and you just say, is it a good play, yes or no? Now, we talked last time ad nauseum at what the criteria would be for a yes or a no, but that's up to you. But then you take those no's, and those are the plays you really focus on. So now this week, I guess we're going to talk about how to focus on those things. Okay. So the key is, even if you don't want to do it the way I'm going to describe what I would envision you could use as an accountability system. And I'm talking about on field now. Let's back up a minute here, Michael. We ain't talking about people running over and backs for messing up in class. That's an accountability system too that you need to have, but that's for another podcast. This is for football games. So we're talking about on field accountability, meaning somebody is not doing what they're supposed to do, and you're going to try to hold them accountable. Whether it's they didn't squeeze a down block, they didn't get their foot plate here, their head here, whatever Chad would tell on the O-line, whatever. How are we getting that fixed? So regardless if you want to do it our way, have an accountability system. So I hope when everybody's done listening to this, they have an accountability system where they start building one, even if it's not exactly like I'm describing. So that's the premise of what we're doing. You guys understand that? You want to add anything before we get into this?
No, this was always what I remember about on-field accountability. This is where you would always talk really nice to the offensive line coach about any problems you might be seeing during the game.
Very pleasantly for those. Yeah, that's how I remember it too, Chad.
He was just holding. He just had an on-field accountability system for the coaches.
We had one for the coaches too. Now let's preface this before we get into the facts and have a little fun here. This is not coach on-field accountability. That's a whole other topic, maybe. That's a whole other topic. So here's what I would say. And for offense, let's start on offense, but the same can be said for defense. Same can be said for special teams. I would come up with what I coined here, and I put this on Twitter several times, and it's down on YouTube. You can see what we're looking at and all that if you go to YouTube. But there's basically, what are the golden rules of your position and what is going to be held accountable? So let's use offensive linemen, because Chad did coach the offensive line for us. So basically, Chad's coaching offensive line for me. It's 2022 now, Chad. We fast forwarded a few years. It's 2022. It's now March. You and I are going to sit down and we're going to say, okay, what's the real rules? What's the stuff we need to be saying over and over to linemen? And so for us, it was things like run your feet the entire play, just block through the whistle, run your feet, run your feet, run your feet. You know, in pass pro, we found most of the problems was people's heads not back, that most of pass pro problems happen when their head was forward. And we talked about having a get off. We talked about taking care of the first level first, if we're talking about zone, you know, that. And then we talked about once you engage somebody, he's yours. So if you block down on him, he tries to spin, he's still yours, you know, blah, 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 blah. So that was just our thing. You may have something different, and Chad can expand on that if he wants in a minute. But what I'm saying is, when me and Chad sat down and we came up with those 5 things, that's 5 things, you know, run your feet to the whistle, head back in pass pro, great get offs on every play, knowing you get off, knowing where you're going, take care of first level first. And when you engage a guy, he's yours. I expected to hear those things said over and over, whether it was from me, from Chad, from the other line coach, whatever. Like those are the mantras those are the golden rules is what I said, but you call it whatever works for you. Then beside that, we're going to have an accountability list for these offensive linemen that pretty much should correlate those golden rules. Okay. So for example, if one of those rules is run your feet to the whistle, then I want to know how many times in a game somebody didn't run their feet to the whistle. So the accountability list is not running your feet the entire play. That's a negative. Bad first steps. Head forward on pass pro, missed assignment. Those are 4 things that we can say, okay, if anybody does one of those 4 things, we're going to acknowledge it. We're going to get on to it. We're not going to get on to about all the other stuff because there's literally millions of things these kids could be gotten on to for. But at the end of the game, Chad's all week been talking about these 5 things as offensive lineman. We maybe just pick one of these things. We may not even do all 5 of them every week or all 4 of them. We may say, look, Chad, we're going to throw the ball a lot this week. We're going to tell these linemen we're going to grade them and do the traditional stuff too. We're going to get to that in a minute. But basically, we're just going to count how many times a person didn't have their head back on pass pro. That's all. Johnny 6 times, Willie 4, whatever. And at the end of the Monday, when we come to practice, we're going to have 11 times somebody didn't have their head back on pass pro. We're going to all do 11 push-ups. Now, it's important. This is an important piece of this. These do not have to be punishments like you're making somebody's life miserable. I would actually advise against that. But I would also advise against doing nothing. So if you said we're going to do something every time your head's forward on pass pro and 11 times that happened, then I would expect to see 11 somethings, even if it's just 11 push-ups and every kid can do 11 push-ups. But at least makes the kids know you're watching that. So next week when we watch that same thing, guarantee you there'll be less than 11. So the same could be said for tight ends, for receivers, for running backs, for quarterbacks, for DBs, for D-line, for linebackers, whatever. So I used O-line as an example because we don't have 6 hours to talk about all of these, but we maybe can another time. But what are your golden rules or your mantras for your position? And then you coordinate that to 4 or 5 things. So like, I'll give you a few more examples and I want Chad and Michael, you expand on this. Like if you're a quarterback, it may be, did you miss the read? Yes or no? How many times did the quarterback miss the read? I don't care if he threw it in completion. I don't care if he, but how many times did he pull it when he really should have gave unless and the read was unclear? We're going to do that many push-ups. How many times? The running back, how many times they not carry out their fake? Carrying out their fake is a major concern at running back, as you know, especially for anything like we did, where the plays complemented each other. So if you want them to carry out their fake, getting on to them and yelling about carrying out fakes is probably going to work okay. But if you tell them, hey, at the end of, look, Coach so-and-so is going to count the times that somebody doesn't carry out a good fake. And I'm going to put a number up on the board. And it's 8 this week. We're going to do 8, whatevers. Next week, we got to do better than that. 8's too many. You're going to see 6 the next week, 5, whatever. Whatever you put emphasis into, that's what you're going to get. At receiver, maybe it's just a bad stance, a bad start. So those are kind of offensive things. You pick a few golden rules. You pick a few things to have accountability for. It does not need to be a giant list. Do not come up with 45 golden rules. I'd say 5 is stretching it. Make sure it's something that can, and then you get your accountability list, make sure it's something that's measurable and attainable. And then this makes the coaches, one of the key components of this is it makes the coaches think about what's important, right? And nothing else, it does that. And it gives the players of understanding of what's important, because it's hard for a player to play football and have all the 8 million things coming at them like an O-lineman gets. But if they know, God Almighty, if I just put my head back on the pass pro this week, that's at least I'm doing that. And let me get the rest of this right. All right, Chad, stepping.
No, can be applied in 1,000 different areas, but the key element to this is you maximize, as you said, Chris, what is important. Like if we do these things, the propensity for us to be successful is very high. Like if we'll just do these things correctly. And so in focusing on that, it makes us do lots of things better. And it also helps everyone else, as you said, Chris, helps the coaches understand what's important, and helps the players totally understand what's more important for them. I think it's very easy for you as the coach too to get so lost in all the things you want them to do right that you can't measure anything. And if you have it as golden rules or your 5 maxims, whatever they are, it's very easy to keep up with that. That can be done then.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And that's what I'm saying. My tip, and I'm not even going to say that we were dominant at this all the years I coached. We were better in some years than others at this. But if I had to do it over again, and now I'm looking at these tips, I'm trying to explain to people what I've learned from not coaching, but working with coaches, I would put more of an emphasis on this. I think you're right. Most coaches come up with 8 billion things for these guys to do, and they can't do them all. So pick a few things.
And the coach isn't wrong about wanting to make those things right. It's not right. It's just not realistic. You can't do it.
Well, and maybe, maybe you can expand on it. Maybe you can start out with just saying, hey, we're just going for this, man. And then you can add it to the next week, add the next week or the next month or whatever. Of course, we would all like for them all to be good. And I don't think, we don't get to debate the listeners in this show, but if anybody's listening to this, they might think something like, well, that sounds good, but what about all the other stuff that the kid's not worried about? Well, I've never had an experience where the kids weren't trying to do all the other stuff right just because we told them we're running for their head back on pass pro or their bad fakes. I didn't feel like the running backs didn't run hard because we only worried about fakes. Like that's something people get worked up in their head that's just not accurate. So the kids are going to try to do everything you told them well, and you need to tell them everything, but they need to pick a few things and say, these are the things I'm getting held accountable for. These are the things I'm getting held accountable for.
Because these are the things we think are the most important to winning.
Right.
That's the key point. All those other things make plays good. They make a good team. They make the offense good. But we fully believe these 5 things at this position, or 4 things, whatever they may be, those things done properly, most of the game will lead to us winning the game.
And I don't think that it can be stated enough that a big part of this is the coach having to figure that out too. Because I think, meaning if you come up with your 5 things for positions, and a position coach and the coordinator and the head coach all kind of work together to come up with the 5 things for receivers, there has to be a healthy discussion of what those 5 things are. Because it's probably not what you originally thought they would be. You need to really think. So what I told you is a list that we have felt over time was best for us, but it may not be best for somebody else. And run something different. I mean, I'm not saying what the rules should be. I gave you some examples, but I'm not saying yours should be that. I'm saying you should have some. Michael, what you got?
So like when I look at the sheet, what I think of is it's kind of the core values for each position. When you look at it from a kind of a non-coaching standpoint, like every business or every school or whatever has kind of their core values. And that's what this is for each position. I think it's very helpful for you, if you have new coaches or if you have young coaches and they don't really feel like they don't know what they're doing, they're kind of still learning on the run, then you're giving them these 4 or 5 things. Like, these are the things that we are going to be really good at. Okay. We'll work on all the other stuff too, but if we're really good at these 4 or 5 things, then we got a chance to be successful. I think that this is very important at like sub-varsity levels. Like, this is almost all it needs to be at sub-varsity levels, is because a lot of this is focused on effort, on, things that the kids have control over. So you're placing a lot of the emphasis on them. And as they grow and as they get better, then we'll obviously advance it, make it add more to it. But, it's a great thing to just for the JV kids, the middle school kids, the freshman kids, that these are the things that we're focusing on at quarterback. These 5 things, that's all you need to know. That's all you're worried about. And as you progress, then we'll add more to it. But this is the base of everything that we're
doing. No, that's right. And then we'll talk. We gave a lot of offensive examples. So let's give a few defense. I feel like defense wins the game more than offense in most situations. So we just kind of go there because it probably is the easiest to talk about. But the same should apply for your defense. You should not have, these don't have to be major punishments. They just acknowledge the golden rules, and you hold them accountable, and you make sure it's measurable and attainable, and you make the coaches understand. The only thing I thought differently on defense that maybe you're thinking, man, I don't even know, what we would do on defense because it's so dependent on this or that. You can do some whole defense stuff too. Of course, you can do the things like, people missing tackles, missing assignments, missed opportunities, which is something I like to track on defense. What's a missed opportunity? Was where somebody didn't intercept the ball they should have. This is a key thing in football that people mess up on. Tip to winning. We'll give an 11th extra tip right here. Catch the damn ball when they throw it to you. And it's an interception. Listen, let me tell you a story.
That's some deluxe information right
well,
there.
Let me tell you what I mean, though. In 2007, I'm watching the Super Bowl. The Patriots are playing the Giants for the Super Bowl. The Patriots are 17-0. I kind of got tired of hearing the Miami Dolphins always bragging about winning. So I was kind of pulling for the Patriots. I was like, let them go undefeated. I remember this, and I've used this example over and over. That's why it's fresh in my mind. But if you go back and watch the film, they did the helmet catch thing that and then after that, the Giants score and the Giants beat them. Anybody that knows football knows that happened. But like one or two plays before that helmet catch, Asante Samuel dropped an interception. Right to him, just went right through his hands. And everybody's like, oh, man, next play, dadgummit. But that play lost him the game. All the other plays did too. But he intercepts that ball, you think totally different about that whole situation. How many times have you almost had an interception? You had a ball, you dropped, and then it was, 2nd and 6, no big deal. But they converted the 3rd and 6. And then later that drive, they went down and scored. It's not always as dramatic as Asante Samuel in the Super Bowl with the undefeated team. But how many times was a ball laying on the ground that we could have picked up and we didn't? And it changes the complexion of the game. So there has to be a harping on missed opportunities. I don't think it's not as if that's one of those things that people in the bleachers or even people watching at home or even fans and coaches sometimes we just kind of shrug our shoulders at, well, damn, should have caught that one. But really, that's just as bad as giving up touchdowns or just as bad as whatever you can imagine the bad plays are. So think of some things on defense. Maybe you can do even for the whole defense, pursuit oriented stuff like that. So what would you add for the defense stuff, Michael?
I think you say like the focus on the whole thing. I think everybody tracks things like loafs, who's being lazy. Again, it's things that the kids have control over. They don't always have control over of some of the stuff they can do, but they have control over their effort. And so that was kind of always the one we focused on. Missed tackles, loaves, things like that. Those are all things that, we feel that we should be able to do. Everybody out there should be able to make that tackle. Even if it's one-on-one, that's something that we got to be good at. We have to win those one-on-one opportunities. It's not always with the ball up in the air. Sometimes it's you just got to make this tackle and keep it a 3-yard game and not let it be an 8-yard game. So that was one thing that we did. Loads, the two biggest things that we always focused on.
Yeah, I think so. So you could do the same thing for special teams, but I would advise for special teams having maybe just 1 or 2 golden rules. You don't even need to get to 5. They don't show up as often. Special teams, a lot of times you're going to have 5 or 6 play per team. So on average, 5 punts, 5 punt returns, 5 kickoffs, 5 kick returns. You keep around that number. It's going to be hard to have too many golden rules for that. But you can have something, on punt return that maybe one rule that caters to the guys on the gunners, one rule that caters to people going for the block. You can be creative with that too, and you can hold accountable there too. So let's talk about those 2 things. Going back to last week, we talked about the yes/no columns and charting efficiency. Then we talked about accountability, like taking one thing and saying, I'm just going to chart how many times we did that. So now we talk about grading. Now, here's where I may lose some people. So we'll see how many people stop listening at this moment in the show. But I think it's stupid to grade all these plays and give them like 82.6, 84.9. What a bunch of joke. Well, and the reason it's a bunch of horse shit is if the left tackle, if for whatever reason we ran right more than half of the time, it's not a fair grade. If the right tackle blocked play side and the left tackle blocked backside 58% of the time, then that change. How are you going to compare those people? That you're giving a number of something that's not accurate. The problem is, did they do their job? Yes or no? Now, sometimes the job is just way easier. So what I would like to see, what I would do as far as grading, my grading would be one, that accountability list. And then here's what you do. You take all those yes, no plays. We talked about this last time. You take all those yes, no plays. You say, what stopped the play? And we talked about this last week. Was it your fault, bad play call? Was it their fault, something they can fix? Their fault, something they can't fix? All the plays. So Michael's the defense coordinator. We're going to take all the defensive plays. We're going to take all the ones we said yes on, which were good. All the good plays for us. We're throwing them out. We're not watching them. We got these bad plays. Let's say it's on average about 20. Of these 20 bad plays, we're going to figure out whose fault it was. Well, let's say 3 or 4 of them just bad call by Michael. And let's say 3 or 4 of them are somebody just got mossed or something that literally they could do nothing about. The guy's just better. Going to leave you with 12, 13, 14 plays. And those are the plays we're going to show these kids, especially if it pertained to them. Now, I mean, if you split up and of your 13 plays, only 4 of them pertain to the quarterback, we're going to make sure that quarterback sits down with that coach and watch those 4 plays. I would prefer them to watch about 7 plays, because what I would like to see the coach do. So let's back up and make sure I'm explaining this correctly. Chad's the O-line coach. I want Chad to, if Chad had 9 plays on the O-line that were no's that we thought were something the kids could do better, I want the O-lineman to watch all 9 of those plays. Even if it wasn't them that messed it up, because I feel like they can learn from the others, So then I want you to pick out 2 or 3 good plays from preferably all 5 of the linemen each. Pick out something they did really well and tag it to go along with those 9 plays we're going to show them. See, now, when the head coach says it's time to go to practice, y'all watch film for 45 minutes, you got to the pertinent stuff and not play 4 like people used to do, right? Chad's laughing for those that can't see him, because it's not Chad, it was everybody. The way we used to watch film was you go in there and watch film with the kids, and it's like you get to play 5, 6, and 30 minutes have passed because the coach gone on a tirade like I do on this damn podcast. And the kids got nothing accomplished. They saw like 3 plays. And so they never got to the plays that really mattered. So instead of showing them the whole film, they can watch the whole film on their own. And, if you got kids that'll do that, then let them watch the whole thing. This is more my opinion than a tip. It is a tip that you need an accountability system. It's my opinion that the best way to grade them is to pick out something for accountability, make them punish for that, plus show them a couple of good plays something they did really well, and pump them up for that. Tag the plays that needed improvement based on your efficiency, and let's go to the next week. What you got, Chad?
No, I think that obviously this was not one of the bright ideas we'd come across while I was still coaching, because we were still very much spending a lot of time spinning wheels looking at that. But I do think you're right, that I do think that the kids they watch their own film. They want to watch themselves. So they're going to watch themselves and everything. And if you've highlighted things they did well and you've talked to them before, and they will go back and look at that on their own. I think that sounds odd. Kids won't read something or do homework or stuff like that, but they'll sit and watch themselves. They will do this.
They don't have a problem with that.
No, I don't have any problem with that. And so by doing that way, you do have much more focus, because just like most of the guys on here who are coaching are teachers too, you can't cover everything. You've got to get to what's important and talk about what's important and what's going to make you do well on the test. Well, what the hell's the difference in a game? It's just a test is all it is. So we got to highlight what's important, show them what we did right, what we did wrong, and let's fix what we did wrong.
No, that's right.
I think when Huddle came around, it made this so much easier. I think that's when we really kind of stumbled upon this. Before it was just you had a DVD, so you kind of were just going through it. But when you got to actually be able to just tag certain plays and sort certain ways, and you could actually write things on there where they could see it. I think that totally changed the way that we started, quote unquote, grading kids. And I think we definitely went away from some kind of, arbitrary number system to these are the plays that you messed up on, and this is what you did wrong. This is what you need to do better next time. So it did save us a lot of time in that aspect. Because Chris was right. He would go on like a long 30-minute diatribe on Mondays, and we're going to watch film, and now we got like 10 minutes left. So that was huge.
No, I
for
didn't
those
do that.
kids.
Michael and Chad did. I didn't do that.
Correct. Yes.
Well, I would say too, like just to, throw another wrench in people's worlds out there. For everybody that wants to bring the kids in and watch film on the weekend and do all that extra stuff like that, that's fine. That's cool. But you could make it much more valuable by having it much more concise like this.
Like this. Yeah.
Or perhaps you don't have to do that to everybody either.
Yeah. I mean, I really do enjoy the support I get. And so I try hard not to jump on the soapboxes that may make a certain group of people not like me. It doesn't seem necessary or good for book sales. But
mainly.
But if I had to do these 4 a.m. practices or these damn Saturday and Sunday all day things, that'd be another reason not to be out there. I'll just leave it at that. Golly, some of these people. Yeah, I don't believe it's what gets. If you like that and it works for you, good for you. I'm joking. I really am. But don't believe that's why you're winning, because it's not. If you are winning and you're doing that, good for you. But you can be smarter with how you grade. You can be smarter with showing the kids things. You don't have to do that. You're doing that because you want to, and it's fine. Hey, sometimes I do a ton of stuff because I want to, but at least I know that's what I'm doing. So that would be my advice when I do talk to people who feel like they heard that. I'll use an out-of-state team. So they heard that Alcoa, they do blank. Well, that doesn't mean you should do that. And sometimes it's things like that, Chad, where they get a higher level of buy-in, maybe because the program won 8 million state championships. Then you get the job at the place that went 1-9 last year and try to tell them it's going to be like Alcoa, and it's not. So you need to just get better. I talked to Dean Fabrizio today from Lee County, coming out on the podcast of Georgia football stuff. And it was just interesting how they do things, how they've just kind of built and built and built and built. And these are the kind of things you do. He and I probably disagree on some of the things I've said in this podcast. That's fine. What he and I don't disagree on is that just building and building and building and keep trying to find new ways. And grading is one of those things you can keep trying to find new ways. My guess is that some of these pearls of wisdom that we're throwing out here are going to stand the test of time. In 10, 15 years from now, there's still going to be something that wins a football game. But my guess is with this grading, there's going to be a better way in 5 or 10 years from now than what I'm saying. You come up with a new way is what I mean. The tip is have an accountability system. That's going to always be accurate. The method at which you do that can probably change. Like Michael said, when we had DVDs, for you to cut a thing up like this, it take you 7 hours. That wasn't feasible. Now it takes you about 7 minutes to tag a couple of good plays and the plays that we need to talk about. You made a playlist to show that kid. So take advantage of technology that's there for you. So it's just something that I do feel like we do a lot of stuff in this realm because we always have. Is that fair to say? And I guess that's why I went on the tirade right then. This is one of the things that it feels like a lot of people just got to put up that lineman of the week that had 86.4% or that DB of the week. And look, nobody, if you know me, nobody loves the DB of the week more than me or no lineman. I love the concept of you recognizing a kid. What I'm saying is putting it on this one thing. Like we ran the wing T, the center was the offensive line of the week every week. Somebody's never done anything. He didn't pull, didn't block
back, baby.
I mean, Joker's 98%. And all he could do was fumble the snap, probably. Even if he whiffed on the block back, it didn't really usually matter. Back then we saw an even front every week, and he blocked back every time. I mean, good for him. Guy was like the 10-time defending champ of lineman of the week. Pulled tackle, was getting whipped every play out there on the island, getting about 75% and killing it. I mean, so be smart with your process. that would be, I guess, what I would gather from this. But most importantly, have an accountability system. If you didn't like half the stuff we said about how, that's fine. I just wanted to give you some examples. You do whatever you think's best for you, but have an accountability system. If I come to your practice and I said, hey, how you hold these kids accountable for football stuff? I'm not talking about messing around in the classroom or coming late or whatever. We're talking about an on-field accountability system. How do you hold them accountable? You should be able to answer it just like that. If you can't, you got to work on that. It's okay, but that's a tip. You guys got anything else?
No, I think we did a good job of covering it. Just like say, it doesn't matter what you do. You don't have to do what we did, but you do need to do something. These just kind of, like say, we offered some tips and some ideas, but if you've got a plan, if it's working, stick with it, but have some way to hold the kids accountable.
Goes back to the very first thing we were talking about. Have a plan.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's exactly what it is. But I've learned this, Chad, it's important to explain to folks how to have a plan and what to have a plan about. Because I found that phrase, while that sounds good to me, they feel like if they made a 1-page Word document for the whole 8 billion things that happen in the football program, that they've got a plan. And not trying to knock folks that do that. I'm trying to help and say, if you want to have a plan for this. I'm gonna give a little foreshadowing here, Chad. I know you used to be an English teacher, so you like that.
Like it. I like big words.
One of these tips is spend a little less time gossiping, worrying like coaches do, because coaches do that, by the way. And a little more time planning, organizing. And when we get to that, I'm going to reference this again, because all this takes is a little bit of effort, just an extra few minutes to watch and see who carried out their fake right and who didn't. Tag a few good plays. So that 10 minutes you were talking about who was getting a Buford job, which doesn't matter because you ain't getting it. Just go ahead and tag this instead. That's helpful. So I want to reference a little foreshadowing, chat, a little sneak peek for the people that don't know their English terms or their grammatical, whatever, their literature term. That's a literature term, right?
You're just giving a tip about the tips. Just a tip about the tips.
Yeah. But yeah, that was good. So cue the music, Michael.